everybody. Eve Hara, Director of Tourism for One Israel Fund, on a beautiful day in the land of Israel. We're in Maale-Pnei Chever. It's impossible to be in the land without my Tanakh, and especially here. Reading Parashat Lech Lecha, Genesis 12:10. And there was quarreling between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and those of Lot's cattle. Remember, they're shepherds. So they're all over this area because this area of the edges of the desert, we're at the edges of the Judean desert, is perfect for shepherding. That's why there are farms and ranches all over the place now. Let there be no strife between you and me, between my herdsmen and yours, for we are kinsmen. Is not the whole land before you? Let us separate. If you go north, I will go south. And if you go south, I will go north. Lot looked about him and saw how well watered was the whole plain of the Jordan, all of it. That's what's behind me. The Dead Sea and the area where the Jordan comes into the Dead Sea. Thus they parted from each other. Avram remained in the land of Canaan while Lot settled in the cities of the plain, pitching his tent near Sdom. Lot journeyed eastward. So if you're standing here, going down to the plains here is east. All right, so this is one of those places where the Tanakh is giving us the location. It's not 100%, not everybody agrees, but there are a lot of opinions that this is where Avraham and Lot stood, where they divided where they were going and who was going to each place. Pretty amazing, right? We're with Rosalie Mark at Holy Cacao.
So glad to have you here today. Excited to show you around the factory. So let's go in.
Yeah, I'm just breathing deeply. Okay, so anybody who knows me knows that I absolutely love chocolate. And I've been coming here for many, many years. And I remember the first years that I would come here, the room did not look like this. You had a dryer.
Yeah, the founder, Joe Zander, had a dream that he was gonna make Aliyah and make chocolate. He came here and started importing beans on a very small scale and making his chocolate, roasting them in a clothes dryer, transformed into a roaster that eventually caught on fire. And he said, we have to do this in a more practical way. So he bought some machines and started being the first person in Israel to create bean-to-bar chocolate.
But that's not usual. You guys are the only ones who do this, right? Most chocolatiers in Israel get
Most chocolate places in Israel get chocolate made into either coins or in bulk, you know, big pieces, kilo pieces or things like that. So we actually import beans from all over the world, from Madagascar, Ecuador, Venezuela, Papua New Guinea. We're working on getting some beans from different countries, from different, you know,
around the equator.
Around the equator, 10 to 20 degrees up north and south of the equator is really the optimal place for cocoa beans to grow. We actually have a farm of our own in Peru, and that's where the majority of our beans come from. We have an Israeli named Bezalel that takes care of the farm down there, and Joe tries to go there at least once a year to check up on things and how things are going. A lot of our organic beans come from a farm in Ecuador run by a man named Vicente Norero. That's mostly where our beans are coming from. We get a big shipment about once, twice a year, about 20 tons of beans come to us. So this is how cacao is grown on a tree. It grows in a pod that's about the size of a small American football. It gets harvested twice a year, once in the summer and once in the winter. And inside each pod is between 30 to 50 cacao beans, surrounded in this gelatinous, sticky substance. You can see it on the, that's absolutely delicious. Joe actually smuggled a pod back for us one time when he was in Peru, and we all got to taste it, and it was like tasting Gan Eden. The thing is that the substance that surrounds it is what causes the fermentation of the beans. All of the sugars and the yeasts that are in this substance is what starts the fermentation of the beans. And you have to ferment cocoa beans. That's the first step in making good chocolate, is having a good fermentation.
Okay, meaning most fun things in life are fermented. Wine,
yeah, bread, beer, wine, coffee.
I guess yogurt also could fall into that category on a healthy day. What are all these machines, which you have shut down for us so that we would have some quiet?
So the machines in this room are after the beans have been roasted and winnowed, which is removing the shells from the beans and cutting the beans into little pieces. After the beans have gone through that process, they come into this room, and this is our grinding room or refining room. So the beans go through 3 stages of refining. First is in this machine here, which refines it down to sort of a powdery substance. And then it goes into the machine at the top of the room, which is called a ball mill. And in the ball mill is the first spot where we would add to the chocolate sugar if we need to, or more cocoa butter if need be. It's the first stop where the chocolate is actually heated up and it turns into something that we call chocolate liqueur, but it's not alcoholic.
Okay, so when we talk about percentages of chocolate, like 100% chocolate has no sugar in it.
Has no sugar in it at all. It's just beans.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but most typical chocolate bars cut it with a lot of milk and a lot of other stuff.
They'll put soy
right.
lecithin in it, or they'll put other lots of sugar or different fat substances. Actually, a lot of chocolate places will take out the cocoa butter from the beans and replace it with other fats because it's cheaper, because they can sell the cocoa butter to cosmetic companies or hair and skin,
right?
All sorts of stuff that cocoa butter is good for. They can sell it for more, and then they'll fill their chocolate with
all right, so when we talk about boutique chocolate and high-level chocolate, this is exactly the difference.
Yeah, you're talking about chocolate with just 2 ingredients. It's cocoa and sugar, or just cocoa.
And really high-level cocoa.
Yeah. Okay, so after the chocolate has been refined and ground to a smooth consistency that we're happy with, it goes into this machine here, which is called a conch. And basically what a conch does is it aerates the chocolate. It takes out a lot of the bitterness from the chocolate, and it just gives it a really good flavor. It's just mixing, that's all it's doing. It's like when you open up a good bottle of wine and you let it aerate for a little bit. So oxygen is really important to fermented foods, to bring out the flavors of the fermentation and also the flavors of the product that we want. So in here we're making a batch of 50% chocolate chips. So this is, this guys, machine can...
I'll see you guys later. I'm done for the day. Okay.
This machine can handle a ton of chocolate at a time. That's usually the batch that we work with. 1 ton of chocolate. Yeah.
And you've been here about 5 years? I remember the first time I met you. I was like, oh, woman chocolate too. This is so great. So what's your background?
So I'm originally from Texas. I've been in Israel for about 19 years, going on 20 years. I grew up very Zionist, always knew that I was going to come home to Israel. And my husband actually learned in yeshiva with Joe, and that's how we became connected. And I immediately became good friends with his wife. And he knew that I was interested in food, that I, love good food and good, just good quality stuff. So he started talking to me about chocolate, and I was at the time looking for a job, and I said, sure, I'll come help you wrap chocolate. He had a big order to fill. And so I came up and started helping him literally wrap chocolate by hand, which is what we were doing at the time.
I remember
and
that.
he just kept, getting into me little by little about this and that, and eventually ended up sending me to school to become a chocolatier. I did a 6-month course with a school from Vancouver, and now I'm the manager of the factory here.
Wow. And you live also in Maale-Pnei Chever, right? You and Joe.
Yeah.
Okay.
We both live here. Our kids are friends. Our husbands are friends. I mean, my husband is friends with Joe, and I, good family friends. They're like very much family to us.
Well, if tourism never comes back and I need a career change, so I might come knocking on your door for that also, but we'll see.
And we also happen to employ, a lot of right now because of the corona, so most of our staff here is youth from the yeshuv that, their schools shut down and they're not going back.
Okay.
So it's great.
It's general, because I see some, so there's some kids there, but ask us some B'nai Menashe.
Yeah, so the B'nai Menashe guys have been here also for about 5 years, and they're amazing. They're, first of all, the sweetest people ever.
Yes.
And they're willing to for me personally, they're willing to just do anything for me and support me, and they're like my brothers. I could not have asked for better staff here. And they come with they're just willing to figure anything out. Any way that they need to figure it out, they'll figure out how to fix it.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, B'nai Menashe are a group of people who the missionaries actually found them 150 years ago in Miyampur, near in the middle of absolutely nowhere. And it turns out that they knew a lot of Tanakh, and there's a feeling there, that's why they're called the B'nai Menashe, that possibly they were one of the lost tribes that ended up way out there. Many of them are also religious Jews.
Yeah, and there's a big community of them in Kiryat Arba.
That's where these guys
these guys come from. And one of them is our technical guy. He does a lot of the maintenance on the machines and cleaning machines, and he figured out how to rewire this entire machine. It took him, a few days, but he completely took it apart and put it back together.
Amazing.
He just is This is my job, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to figure it out. Another one is our master panner. Yeah. He does all the chocolate-covered things. He's actually been, we sent him to Italy last year to be trained to cover things in chocolate. So this is the room that we're going to actually produce the chocolate into bars. This is like the exciting stage of chocolate. This is called, we call it the blue room, hence the floor.
The blue room.
So come on in and let's see how the chocolate is made. Zvi, I need you to smile, okay? Yeah. Because they want you on video.
No.
Yes. So Zvi right now is taking chocolate out of the cooling tunnel. This is how we produce the bars of chocolate. 1 ton of chocolate will make about 40,000 bars. He's doing a 90% chocolate right now. Should we taste it and see what it tastes like? You want to taste chocolate?
Oh, fine, force me. Really good.
Chocolate is a fruit. It grows on a tree, and really the purest form to eat it is from, you know, the actual fruit. But because most people don't have access to the actual fruit, so Rav Lior, who's the rabbi, the Rosh of Kiryat Arba, told us that any chocolate bar that's made of 50% cacao or more, that we should be saying the bracha Borei Pri Ha'etz on it.
You hear that, everybody? 50% or more, Borei Pri Ha'etz.
Chocolate is good for you.
Totally. It's definitely good for your mood.
This is Barlev, who went to Italy to be trained to make all of these chocolate-covered things. He's really a pretty talented guy at what he does.
I like hazelnuts. I'm going with almonds.
Almonds, coffee beans.
Ooh. Almonds? All right, I'll go for the almonds. All right, so Rosalie had to go back and actually make some chocolate. And now we're with founder of Holy Cacao, Joe Zender. So Joe, looking around, I mean, here we are. This is the industrial zone of Maale-Pnei Chever. We've made your home. Why here? There have to be easier places to open up a chocolate factory than in the middle of the southern Hevron Hills.
Well, firstly, I live here, so you know, that was the first consideration. The rent was a lot cheaper 12 years ago.
Okay.
When we came down here. It's really beautiful. The weather is like perfect for chocolate making. It's a pretty dry climate. Chocolate doesn't like humidity so much. We're at the edge of the desert. We're on the mountains overlooking the Judean desert. And really, when I started the company, it's very expensive to make chocolate. We didn't start with the machinery, all the machinery you saw over here. Yeah. We started with, you know, things that were
about the dryer.
Yeah, and it was probably impossible to start it anywhere else, just because we wouldn't be able to afford paying rent in any major city in the country. Although, you know, it would be the case that I think if we were anywhere else in those early years, we'd have a lot more foot traffic to the door. Right. But being here, kind of like isolated away from everything, really gave us the time to focus on our craft and really learning this. This is not something that we learned overnight. I mean, this took years and years of, like, you know, failure after failure to really learn how to make chocolate at this level. And also, being isolated forced us from the very beginning. We knew we had to work with partners, being stores. We knew that the distribution piece of the business was going to be critical to our success. And, you know, kind of being away from it and being like really like lean in terms of expenses and staff, and kind of like doing everything in the beginning, was just two of us doing everything by hand. That enabled us to do something that really no one else still is doing in this country, which is making the chocolate from the beginning. So we spent all our money primarily on the raw ingredients, and the partners even in Chutz La'aretz, outside of Israel, the farmers, to really, you know, pay the premium on that side. And we knew ultimately, you know, with time, if we invested in that piece of it, if you have good beans, you know, ultimately we were able to afford like the best technology. But even with, you know, the humble beginnings that we started with, we knew that the beans is really what the value that you can translate that to the customer. And that's what our company is really all about, is giving Israelis a taste of really the best that the world has to offer with regards to chocolate. That was the idea from the very beginning. You know, anybody, you know, can make substandard chocolate. You can just buy chocolate, melt it down, put it into a bar. We were never really interested in that. We were interested in actually crafting something, making something from scratch, really being able to, tell our customers. We know the names of the last names of our farmers. Like really, that's what makes a superior product and a premium product. And so, being close to home was great. I was able to spend, endless hours in those early years. Sometimes days, weeks on end. Like, and my family could just jump up and say hi, even if I wasn't coming home, because we had machinery that needed to be fixed. So there's a lot of advantages for it to be close to my home. This area I fell in love with when I first came here. I remember the first time I saw the view over here. Probably today you'll be able to see it. Sometimes you could see the water of the Dead Sea, which is amazing.
All right, but have you paid a price for being here, like BDS? I mean, here you are. You're in Judea. This it's not outside of Tel Aviv. Now that you don't just supply Israelis with high quality chocolate, but you're also exporting, has there been a price to pay for where the location of the factory is?
The truth is that we've had, unfortunately, I think we've had more BDS issues in Tel Aviv than we've had outside the country. There's been a few isolated instances where people, once they find out where we are, they're not interested. But overall, I would say that, great products generally, borders don't really matter. And I think that if people would actually know more of the story of what it's like to live here, they would realize that their political preconceived notions, they don't have a place here. This area, like you mentioned earlier, this has always kind of been like the crossroads. There's just been so many peoples that have crossed between here and there, but we've kind of been like a constant force here. And we're really just trying to live here, peacefully in harmony, and we're not really trying to kick anybody out. It's the opposite. We kind of feel like more encroaching as time goes on. I mean, 12 years ago, you'd never see anything on these hilltops. You wouldn't hear anything around. Now you hear them, and it's unfortunate that we don't have that same kind of freedom to just kind of expand out with our borders or be able to increase housing over here. There's been kind of limited growth the entire time we've been here. But this issue was full. I mean,
how many families?
About 100.
But room for many more.
When we came here, there was about 60. So about 40 families in 12 years, which is not so much growth.
No, not at all. That hasn't even doubled itself.
Yeah, but we just finished filling up the houses, and hopefully there's plans to bring some more in.
Do you feel security issues around here? Like worried about the factory being broken into, or?
Not some. I mean, we do have a fence here, so there is kind of like this maybe artificial sense of security since there is a fence. We have a farm now that is outside the fence, and so I know like Rosalie's family, her boys are down there a lot, and I've taken my family down there. The truth is I don't really love the fence. I'd rather be on the other side of the fence. I looked into agriculturally a couple of years ago, wanting to start just growing our own almonds. We use a lot of almonds. The Rav of the Yishuv has almonds planted over there that are regularly vandalized by the Arabs. The farmers that are outside the fence, they also have issues that they have to deal with. But I think it's part of it's part of like that settlement mentality of just being here and showing them this is where we live, and not being afraid to walk out and hike and be in these places that. I think this is the most beautiful part of the country. I think if we looked at it from a perspective like from America, this should be considered like the Napa Valley. It's like the best wine in the country is growing here. There's great artisans all over the place. Even though there's not tremendous amount of population here, there's no reason why it shouldn't be.
And it's actually coexistence.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what everybody talks about, the so-called liberals talk about.
We don't have,
and here you are.
We bring in this heavy machinery. There's no Jews here who have cranes. We have to work with Arabs. There are many instances when you don't have any other choice. And so when it comes to like a people-to-people relationship, I don't remember what the saying was. I don't know if it was Muppets or something. It was like peoples are peoples, right? Yeah. It's just if there wasn't government involved in this type of relationship, I do think we would figure out something how to make it work, because we do it anyway. There's we don't have any other choice but to rely on one another to be able to succeed in accomplishing what we're trying to accomplish.
Right. But if you guys weren't here, you talk about encroachment. This entire area would be from Bani Naim until I don't know where, would just have Arabs all over the place, and so you're really
and we see them expanding.
Of Jews.
We do see them expanding. It would be nice if we had that same kind of freedom to just kind of you know,
Right.
expand out a little bit more. But
Well,
one day,
hopefully, one day maybe we'll get some permission if the status here changes.
Yeah.
And you can actually move those fences out and put more people here.
I mean, the legal land of the yeshuv, actually, of the settlement, is several kilometers past the fence. The fence is a security fence. And so before there was a fence, there weren't as many interactions with the Arabs coming that close. The second that the fence was put in, so they come up to the fence. That's, you know, that's basically
The
way that they
downside of the
operate.
fence.
Yeah.
Exactly. It holds you in instead of being able to expand. All right, well, it's so beautiful to see here, like the grain's growing. We're in the time of the Omer.
Yeah.
It probably was the Malkosh yesterday, probably was the last rain that we're going to see this season. And just to come out here and see the biblical landscape, it has to also, it has to get into the chocolate. I know I've brought people here, buses for One Israel Fund. Some of the people watching might have also been on those buses, and also private families. And there's always a sense of your chocolate is just something, there's a spirit in there beyond just being fabulous chocolate because of where you are. If it's in the air, whatever it is, there's just something very special.
And we've always been, you know, we open really only to the public once a year. I mean, we take the tours privately, but we open to the public once a year on Chol Moed in the intermediate days of Sukkot. And I remember early on when we started doing it, we'd get visitors from, you know, all the way up in Afula or Kiryat Shmona. I remember one time someone came and I asked them, did you come down because, like, you know, the Maale-Pnei Chever in Hevron was open and you wanted to come? Like, no, we're huge fans of your chocolate, and when we heard that you guys are open, we wanted to see it for ourselves, you know, as a family trip. And I thought that it was such you know, I felt so blessed that, you know, just by doing it over here, that people who would never ever come to this part of the country get to, you know, walk 4 steps in it.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah,
right?
just to give people the opportunity to see what's going on here. You know, it's it is a really special place. So I mean, I hope that it continues. I hope that you know, people will, you know, venture out beyond. This is kind of like the last horizon that we have left in the country of the unexplored. So people who are a little bit more adventurous, they do tend to come out here. But yeah, it's a tremendous privilege and an honor when we get people from all over the country coming to visit us.
Well, hopefully people will be coming back soon and come to visit you, both from inside the country and from outside. Because in a world gone crazy where there's no normal, or there's a new normal, and most of us haven't even really been out of our homes or out of our communities for a long, long time, and so many things has changed, it's great to see that Holy Cacao hasn't changed. I've been here so many times over the years. I love these guys. I love what they do. I love what they are. This is really one of the most beautiful places in the country, and especially during this season. Might not say that if it was July. So I'm so glad that it worked out to come here today, and I can't wait for you guys who are watching this to be able to physically come here. In the meantime, if you're sitting at home anyhow, load up on their chocolates, nothing better, and just connect, just keep connecting. When you think about this area, think about Joe, think about Rosalie, think about the B'nai Menashe, these great guys who are working here, and what this area is doing. It's not stopping. We are here to stay. We have planted ourselves here, building homes, raising our kids, and also making high quality things. I mean, for goodness sake, the coolest people, the hippest people, and the greatest things are coming out of the heartland, out of Judea and Samaria. And that's something that not everybody knows, and we need to start really internalizing that, because this is the future.